Calling in from Canberra, it's South Australian Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Alex, you've had to stay over for the weekend for a double sitting. The Albanese government kind of catching up on time lost since the election.
Yeah, that's right, Ricky. It's I think the IR week, unfortunately for South Australian and Australian businesses, it's a mad rush to scramble through these new laws, which I don't think are going to provide any joy to particularly the small and medium businesses, but it looks like a deal's been done, and we'll be here by the looks of it until it's been done.
And a lot of commentary coming out of Sunday. The deal announced that the Albanese government reached agreement with independent Senator David Pocock, the Canberra senator. How does it all end up seemingly coming down to one person? Who's dealt him into the game?
Yeah, well, look, it's interesting. I mean, there's sort of, I guess the numbers are interesting in the Senate now. You've got the crossbench, of course, which, have in some instances hold a bit of power. And in this case, David does. He effectively holds the ability to call this. And it's, the way I understand it, and I'm only reading what you've been reading as well in the newspaper at this stage, but it appears that he's had some amendments that he wanted, and there's been some back and forth, and it's all hinged on his vote. So that probably what will happen if that all passes, which it looks like it will with his support. It'll head back to the House for rubber stamping, because of course pass through the Senate, and then if there are amendments, it's got to go back to the House for rubber stamping, and they may sit on Saturday. So there's still a bit of a way to go, but it looks like Labor have got their deal.
Well, it never seemed a surprise to me. Pocock is someone to look to me. He was just trying to out-green the Greens. The Greens on board with Labor on this one. So Was it ever in doubt he was going to back this package?
It's hard to know. I mean, I think he's trying to play a sort of a middle of the road type path. I mean, he's backed a couple of things of mine in terms of transparency. So I think there's a bit of a need to have it both ways in a sense. But in many ways, no, I don't think it was an enormous surprise. I think it's probably always going to play out like this.
And Senator Alex Antic, I've seen some video clips of yourself talking about and even holding up a graph in Parliament regarding vaccination. What pot have you been stirring there?
Well, look, it's a pretty concerning pot, I guess, Ricky. There's I think a little while ago, I put in a Freedom of Information application seeking documentation of cardiac presentations at public hospitals, and I got some data back which was pretty alarming, I have to say. It shows a pretty significant spike in cardiac presentations, people turning up with chest pains effectively to public hospitals around about the time that the vaccine was rolled out. So that's July of 2021 or thereabouts, and there's an enormous spike, particularly among 15 to 44-year-olds, where we see a really enormous spike, and then again when the boosters rolled out. So look, I've been looking for answers on that, and I don't seem to be getting any yet. There doesn't seem to be a position from SA Health on it, so we'll just have to wait and see. But look, the figures are very, very concerning to me.
Well, it does seem to me, though, these sorts of concerns that have arisen sound like utilitarianism sort of coming into play, where they say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The governments, collectively, federal and state, seem to happy to sweep that under the carpet and go, well, we saved a lot of lives from COVID using vaccines.
Yeah, look, I think there's a real question mark on that statement in itself. I mean, I'm always careful not to drift into the world of, medicine, because I'm not a doctor, but my job is here to try and pick up the evidentiary trail, I guess, in a sense. And look, there is clear evidence that something's going on with these shots, and I think my view is they should be stopped. They should be stopped immediately, and we just have to take the evidence as it rolls out. But look, there have been more reactions to this, more adverse reactions to this therapy than all other vaccines in the last 70 years, I'm told. So, if that's not a red flag, then I don't know what is. Well,
yeah, and you were a lawyer before you went into Parliament. You're talking about the evidence trail, but where does the duty of care lie here, or have the pharmaceuticals been given a free kick here by having that legal recourse not available because there was experimental vaccines rolled out?
Well, look, I mean, we don't really know. This is part of the exercise. I've seen contracts from other countries which show that there appears to have been an indemnity given by various governments. Brazil, I've seen one that purports to be from Albania, some other EU countries. Basically, an indemnity given to the big pharma manufacturers, so the manufacture and supply contract. So now, if they're the same in Australia as they are overseas, then I've had some real questions about that, because the ones that I've seen from overseas are broad. Some of them are 4 or 5 pages long, seemingly covering any event. And pushing that liability effectively back onto the government and therefore the taxpayer. So, my concern is that the Australian taxpayer has paid for these shots, that they haven't been very good, they haven't been safe nor effective, and then ultimately the Australian taxpayer might end up paying for the court cases, which might, the liability aspect of it as well. So, it looks to me to be very concerning. Myself and a range of other senators, Matt Canavan, Gerard Rennick, and a few others, the One Nation senators, and Ralph Ballard from UAP, put a motion to the Senate asking for the production of those contracts, the contracts that the Australian government has entered into for the supply of the vaccine, and across all the different manufacturers. And somewhat unsurprisingly, but curiously, the Greens and Labor voted against it. The so-called champions of transparency, we hear it from them all the time. All they want is transparency, and of course that seems to be limited to everything but big pharma, who they want to seem to protect. So interesting times, but a very disappointing result. But we'll keep fighting. We'll keep looking for answers and transparency on this issue, because this has been a genuinely unprecedented time in our history.
Well, one of the ways you've been able to chase answers is in estimates. I think, if I've got this right, you started asking questions about whether men can have babies. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you're right. And actually, it just feels like every time. But look, I think we've got to make the point. A couple of times I've heard it said, look, it's a bit trivial. What are you doing? But really, we're talking about the heads and the departments. We're talking about the departments of health, who are making big decisions about health, who during the last Senate estimates program bumbled around about what is a woman. How do you define a woman? And I actually asked some questions about pregnancy and the vaccine and pregnancy to the TGA last time, and they responded with the term pregnant persons, which has always puzzled me. So I put that to the TGA and to the Department of Health. Can men get pregnant? And there didn't seem to be a clear answer, but one of the members of the Australian Greens shouted out across the chamber that they could. So, we're living in very, very strange and peculiar times, Ricky, at the moment. I just think my job is to keep highlighting where the bureaucrats are up to, because that is just ludicrous to me.
Yeah, Senator, I'm very glad I must have dodged a bullet. My wife had all the babies in our family. I don't know about yours.
Well, it's never too late, Ricky. You do like I did and take a test. Just be safe.
All right, thank you, Senator Antic, joining us from Canberra today.
Thanks, Ricky.
Oh, hey.